just realized I reviewed more than 60 movies in this series, and not one of them starred Hulk Hogan. Time to fix that. This is No Holds Barred.
That's how I dress. I dress for the occasion, and this is a...
We open at a wrestling match where Hulk Hogan is basically playing a fictional version of himself. The wrestling match actually goes on for so long that I started to worry that this is what the entire movie was going to be. I never really got into wrestling, and I think I'm too old to start now. After about 7 minutes of wrestling, our plot finally gets underway, and we meet the villain of our little show, played by that guy who's in everything but whose name you can never remember. We're going to call him Bill. Bill is the newly crowned head of a television network, who's very upset because every time Hulk Hogan wrestles on another network, he loses all his ratings. That's right. In this world, wrestling is the most popular thing you could possibly have on TV, and nothing can compete with it. All of his flunkies suggest things that they could try, sitcoms, game shows, but no. Bill says the only solution is to steal Hulk away from a competing network. I'm not sure signing one wrestler would really help you. He's part of a group. He would need to be able to wrestle other people. So if you just hired him to be on your network instead of the network with all the wrestlers, did you want him to do like a cooking show? Or, I don't know. Now, actually, I thought this was so absurd also, the idea of, every time he's wrestling, our ratings all go down the toilet. I actually did pull up ratings from 1989 when this movie came out. And I was wrong, as it turns out, because special event wrestling got double the ratings of the most popular TV shows of the year. So, truth is stranger than fiction, I suppose. Bill offers Hulk a chance to work on his network for any price that he wants. But Hulk turns him down because he's a man of his word and he's already got a contract with another network. Bill doesn't take this well.
Are you trying to tell me my money's not good enough for you? I find that a little hard to swallow, you jockass!
Yeah, he really likes to use the word jockass. I've never heard this term before or since this movie. I mean, clearly it's a play on the term jackass. But the writers must have thought it was so clever when they came up with it, because it keeps coming up in this movie.
You jockass! Jockass? Jockass!
To get back at Hulk for refusing him, Bill has Hulk abducted by his limo driver. And he must have been prepared for this, because the entire setup happens in the amount of time it takes for Hulk to walk out of the meeting room and down to the lobby. It's nice that they already had a specially prepared limo with steel window coverings for just such an occasion. Hulk tries to beat his way outside of the car, and he hits the car so hard it actually swerves into other lanes of traffic. Now, I'm not gonna lie, Hulk Hogan looks like a pretty strong guy in this movie, but I just don't think it's possible to kick a car door so hard that it swerves into another lane when you're inside the car. The limo pulls into an abandoned building where a group of thugs are prepared to beat up Hulk Hogan. Wow, man. Really? We're skipping right to that? Let's be clear here. He was offered a contract by this network. He said, I can't, I'm already under contract, thank you, and left. In the, let's call it 10 minutes, it took for him to get down the elevator and leave the building back to his car. Bill was so incensed that he already made a phone call, had the special limo swapped out for the limo, or however Hulk got there in the first place, had a new driver put in there. That driver was then under specific instructions to abduct Hulk, take him to an abandoned warehouse where a group of thugs were waiting to beat him up. We're not even going to try to have a second meeting. You said no to me, I'm going to have you beat up. As the thugs approach the limo, Hulk Hogan explodes out of the steel roof and proceeds to beat them all up. Do you really need me to break down how that's stupid? After the fight, he drags the thugs to the cops and explains that they ambushed him in an abandoned building. Under interrogation, the thugs admit that they worked for Bill, who was promptly arrested. And the movie is over. No. Of course that doesn't happen. No, after beating up all the thugs who tried to, jump him, Hulk decides to go about his life like nothing happened.
What's that smell?
Of course, they take the time to make a poop joke about some guy crapping his pants when Hulk rips the door off in front of him. That's the level of sophistication we're looking forward to in this movie. The next day, Hulk meets his new account executive who... Oh my God. Those eyes. How does anyone ever have a conversation with this woman without just being completely hypnotized by those eyes? Anyway, Sam starts talking about ways to maximize his profitability with sports clothing and personal appearances, and she's maybe 2 minutes into this presentation when he very insultingly attacks her for not mentioning his charity work. Dude. Her job is to make money off of your image. That's her job. That's her whole job. Charity is kind of the opposite of that. It's using your image to raise money for others. It's the opposite of her job. Regardless, I'm sure the company would be more than willing to support your charity and to publicize your charity. Even though at no point in the movie does he ever tell us what the charity is. And at no point do we ever actually see him doing any charity. But you know what? Maybe you let her finish her presentation. She was barely started. For all you know, the very next thing she was going to mention was your charity. But no, you immediately jumped in and had to be a condescending jerk about the whole thing. But she totally gets revenge on him by telling him that they can talk about it over a fancy dinner. You know, at no point in my life have I ever been snide and insulting to a woman immediately after meeting her, and that led to her asking me out. Just saying. The waiter at the restaurant is extremely rude and dismissive to Hulk while showering attention on Sam. Considering that most of the time, and I'm making general statements here, okay? Most of the time, when a man and a woman go to a fine dining establishment together, it's usually going to be the man who's paying the check, and thus the tip. So it's kind of an idiotic move to insult the man who's going to be giving you your money. You know, your tip is going to be based on what he gives you, and you're going to be a jerk about it. And by the way, in case you think I'm being overly sensitive about the whole treating him rude and dismissively, judge for yourself.
Madame, I recommend the quiche. That's cheese pie with snails to you.
And yes, we can all see exactly where this joke is going. Hulk is going to order in French because it turns out he goes to this restaurant all the time, and how dare people make assumptions about his intelligence just because of the way he dresses or the fact that he's a wrestler. Isn't that the joke we're going with? Is it? Right? Right?
Oui, bien sûr. J'ai faim.
Yeah. That's a joke you can see from light years away. Meanwhile, Bill and his cronies go to the seediest, dirtiest bar in the world, which features live amateur wrestling, as most bars do. Well, at least that makes sense. If Bill really wants to compete with Hulk, all he needs to do is start up his own wrestling organization. Finally, the movie has come down to reality. But not before we get some literal toilet humor. Dear God, movie, have some respect for yourself. Bill announces his new show, a wrestling-style show open to anybody in the public who wants to come in and compete, with a $100,000 prize, tax-free. Now, I don't think Bill actually has the connections to make the IRS look the other way on a $100,000 payout, so I'm going to assume that he means we're going to pay you enough money so that after taxes you get $100,000, but that's just me being picky about language. The winner of the competition turns out to be Zeus, who we learn from Hulk's trainer once killed a man in the ring. That's all we learn about Zeus, but it's really kind of all we need. Oh yeah, and remember Hulk? He's the main character of this movie. I know we haven't seen him in like 20 minutes, but he's the main character. The show turns out to be a ratings bonanza. It was #1 in its slot. So that's it. Bill won. He created a show more popular than watching Hulk Hogan wrestling. So he spends the rest of his days sitting back and laughing while smoking cigars, enjoying his success. The end. Of course not. No, now he wants Zeus to beat up Hulk Hogan. It no longer has anything to do with ratings, which is what we've been told this whole time, but it's because when he yelled insultingly in Hulk Hogan's face, Hulk Hogan turned him down. So now he wants revenge. While having dinner with Sam on a business trip, a couple of armed gunmen break in. Hulk decides to immediately put everybody's life at risk by assaulting the armed gunmen by throwing food at them. Because that's what you do. When guys come in with guns, you throw mashed potatoes and gravy at them because it really throws them off their game, you know? They won't shoot you because they're going to be too busy being hurt by the soft food that you're throwing at them. Really, this entire movie feels like it was some kind of daydream of Hulk Hogan's that they actually captured on film. Due to a booking error, Hulk and Sam are forced to share a hotel bed for the night. Hulk tries to be a gentleman about it by dividing the bed down the middle with a sheet. Sam decides to prevent things from being awkward by walking around in her underwear, which is what I always do when I have to share sleeping arrangements with a woman platonically. And so we don't forget how stupid this movie is, they put in a quick masturbation joke. When the bed breaks, Sam can't take it anymore and she throws a little hissy fit, so Hulk decides to go and sleep on a couch in the lobby.
Where are you going?
There's a couch in the lobby that has a better sense of humor than you do.
I'm not sure I actually understand that line. I mean, you weren't trying to sleep on top of the girl, but you want to sleep on top of the couch. So it's not really the right comparison. You don't judge the quality of a sleeping surface by its sense of humor, since inanimate objects don't normally have a sense of humor. And imagine how awful it would be if they did. Could you ever get any sleep if your bed spent all night telling you hilarious knock-knock jokes? It is then revealed to us that Sam is actually a plant from Bill. Her job was to seduce Hulk. Maybe you should have tried sleeping with him then, instead of bitching at him all the time? I'm just saying, if your job is to seduce a man, you should seduce him. Also, how does this work? How does he hire somebody and then get them placed as Hulk's account executive at a competing network? He even points out that she works for an agency. She works for a group of people. So he hired a group of people to plant her in an opposing network in a position of trust. I am almost positive it is illegal to get hired at one company so you can conduct corporate espionage on behalf of another, not counting the fact that since she was hired to seduce the guy, she's basically a prostitute, which is also illegal. And nobody thought it was weird when she came in on her first day at this new company and said, excuse me, I've never worked here before, but I'd like to be an account executive for your #1 talent. Are we really just supposed to swallow this bizarre soap opera plot twist? And I'm going to come back to this. If your job is to seduce the man, why haven't you tried to seduce him? Yeah, she paraded around in her underwear in front of him, but then the second he accidentally touched her because the bed literally broke, she throws an enormous hissy fit. Lady, you are terrible at doing your highly illegal job. Sam confesses to Hulk that she was hired to seduce him. He instantly forgives her because Hulk Hogan is a flawless human being in this movie. Zeus challenges Hulk to a match on TV, and at no point in this movie is anybody going to address the legal issue that both wrestlers belong to different leagues on competing networks. Which network is going to host this inter-league bout? Bill's not going to let it happen on Hulk's network, and I'm going to guess Hulk's network's not really going to let him make appearances on another network. And that's ignoring the fact that these are basically two different sports, because Hulk's is the traditional wrestling, which has its rules and regulations and fictional storylines, whereas the one that Zeus is in is very big on the fact that it's the everyman sport. There are no rules. Anybody can come in and do anything. So you're talking about two completely different sports on two completely different networks from two completely different leagues. How do you do a matchup there? But you know what? None of that's going to enter into this at all. It's never going to be explained. No, because we just want to see these guys beat each other up. So Hulk refuses to take the bait, which leads to Bill arriving in a helicopter to again try to talk Hulk into wrestling Zeus. And Hulk refuses again. This entire scene is pointless except for one thing. As the helicopter takes off, Hulk is holding back the children like he's protecting them. Dude, Do you really think the helicopter's like going to leap at them and attack them? Like is it gonna suck them up into the blades? Is it gonna leap at them? And if the helicopter is going to leap forward at the children, do you really think there's anything you can do to stop it? Bill decides to step up his game by having Sam attacked in a parking garage. The ultimate goal of this attack is a little unclear. The guy isn't just beating her up, nor is he abducting her. Based on the position of the bodies, it really looks like he's trying to rape her. Luckily, Hulk shows up just in time to scare off the rapist. Now, let's see if you can find a problem with this scene.
Oh, no. You okay? I'll be right back. You better run. You better run for your life.
Yeah. There's the woman who's been assaulted. Man just tried to rape her. She is crying on the floor of a parking garage. A lady he's supposed to have feelings for. So he immediately leaves her alone so he can go after the other guy. By the way, you have zero clue that he was working alone. So you're leaving a crying woman on the floor of the parking garage who was just had attempted rape on her. And you're leaving her as an open target to another attack. I hear you. I hear what you're saying, all right? You're saying he was just so mad that this guy attacked her that he wasn't thinking straight, okay? So he immediately had to go after the guy because he was so angry that he attacked his woman, right? I hear you. He's just that mad. Does that look like anger to you? No. He's having fun. He's laughing, cracking jokes, and then throws the guy into a tree. Then he calls the cops, because the attacker actually did announce that he was doing this on behalf of Bill when he jumped the lady. Now, the guy ends up getting a lighter sentence because he points out that Bill hired him to rape the woman, and so Bill ends up going to jail. The end. No, of course not. Nobody calls the cops. The police don't exist in this world. If you almost get raped by a guy who tells you the name of the guy who hired him, you just have him thrown against a tree and then walk away because surely he's learned his lesson. That's it. Hulk throws the guy into a tree with the motorcycle, goes back to Sam, never brought up again, even though the guy literally said who he was hired to attack her by. Hulk's brother and a friend go to see Zeus wrestling as undercover work to learn about his moves, I guess, even though all of his wrestling is televised, so anything Hulk needed to see, he could, watch. Sadly, the Hardy Boys announced that one of them is Hulk's brother to Bill. So Bill has a couple of security guards drag them away to meet Zeus. And then Zeus beats the living stuffing out of Hulk's brother. Beats him so bad he ends up in a hospital unable to walk. Fortunately, there were several witnesses. So Bill and Zeus were taken to court, and you're not falling for that again, are you? No. Nobody presses charges. Nobody calls the cops. Nobody sues for medical expenses. Everybody knows who did it. But there's no consequences in this world for perpetuating acts of violence. None whatsoever. So of course, Hulk finally decides to wrestle Zeus, because when somebody tries to rape your girlfriend and put your brother in the hospital, you give them exactly what they want. That's how you reward bullies and their insanely illegal activities. So we get this training montage. We watch Zeus working out for the match, like punching holes in cinder blocks. And it's intercut with Hulk trying to help his brother learn how to walk again. And I'm sure that somehow this is supposed to get us ramped up for the big fight. But all it does is make it very clear to me that Hulk shouldn't be doing this fight. He should go to the cops. The night of the fight, Bill's security guards abduct Sam, and I think we can all see where this is going. Bill tells Hulk that he needs to throw the match, or he'll break Sam's legs too. So Hulk calls the cops and says, "Hey, this network president has abducted a young woman, is threatening her with physical violence to blackmail me into throwing a sporting match." No, of course not. He sends his friends to search the building for Sam and hopes that they can find her before he has to throw the match, because being a hero means doing exactly what the villain asks you to do. So you know exactly how this goes, right? Hulk gets his butt kicked for a while. Sam manages to escape her captors and rushes ringside. Hulk then draws on the powers of his brother believing in him and the love of a good woman to win the fight. How on earth he wins the fight, I have no idea. Zeus is clearly bigger, clearly stronger. I suppose it's the power of Hulk's heart that enables him to win, but really it's the strength of him being the protagonist of the film. This final fight goes on for about 15 minutes, but it feels more like 15 years. As it becomes evident that Zeus is going to lose the match, Bill responds poorly. He starts destroying all of the equipment in the control booth, even taking his network off the air with this act. You're broadcasting the most watched event of the year right now. Everyone is tuned into your network right now. Regardless of which wrestler wins, you won because you made the millions of dollars from the ratings and the commercials. I mean, maybe you shouldn't be taking your network off the air right now, is what I'm saying. You won. You got everything you wanted. It doesn't matter which one of them wins because it happened on your network. You remember the whole point of the movie? The whole plot? Your character wanted the ratings that Hulk always got, and now you already had the #1 show, and then you pushed further and further and further, and now you again have the #1 show? So maybe you don't rip the cables out and take your network off the air? I'm just throwing out ideas here. And now Hulk is finally ready to deal with Bill. But we can't let our great hero tear a man apart with his bare hands. No, because then he wouldn't be a hero. So Bill accidentally steps backwards into the broken electrical equipment and dies. I mean, I'm pretty sure he's dead. His eyes are open, blood's coming out his mouth. He seems pretty dead to me. Like Hulk Hogan's acting career. The end. I can't believe this movie. And there's at least 5 points in this movie where a phone call to the cops would put an end to all of this. But nobody calls the cops. Nobody calls the cops when they're abducted and driven to a warehouse to be beat up. Nobody calls the cops. Nobody calls the cops when somebody jumps on a woman to rape her after announcing who hired him to do it. Nobody calls the cops. Nobody calls the cops when his brother gets beaten up so badly he ends up in the hospital and partially paralyzed. Witnesses. Witnesses. The friend who was there is fine. He's moving around the wheelchair. He saw everything that happened. Nobody calls the cops. Nobody calls the cops when the girlfriend is abducted the night of the fight and he's blackmailed into losing. Nobody calls the cops. Nobody calls the cops when he hired a woman to commit corporate espionage, and then she changed her mind, decided to become one of the good guys. She could have gone to the cops and had him arrested for hiring her as a prostitute and corporate espionage. Odds are she would have gotten off with probation in exchange for her testimony. Nobody calls the cops. And she's hired to seduce the guy. Except at no point does she attempt to seduce the guy. And yet we're supposed to believe he's likable. He's a jackass to her the first time he meets her. And then he's smug and superior the whole time. And then when he comes across her crying on the ground after being assaulted, he runs off to laugh and throw a guy into a tree instead of being there to comfort and protect the woman who was almost raped. He sticks to his principles. He's not going to fight that guy until he does. And at this point, we don't care about his company anymore. The fact that he's got a contract with a network and that he's a man of his word. Because now he can compete on a competing network. No problem. Nobody mentions any of it. The entire thing really does play like it's just one of Hulk Hogan's daydreams. That's what this entire movie feels like, because it certainly doesn't feel like it takes place in any kind of reality I've ever been to. There is so much wrong with this movie. So much. I'm done.